As we're starting to learn about some new ghost towns here in Marshall County, Kansas, a good place if you want to learn a lot more is to go to the Blue Rapids Museum. I was there earlier and met a lady in the museum, and they have little displays for some of these towns and pictures and all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to show you some of those as we're talking. The first town here is Irving, and when you pull up, there's nothing left except for a little stone sign that I think I read was where the post office used to be. Irving, Kansas was a very unlucky town in just trying to survive. Originally it was settled in about 1859 by some people from Iowa. In 1860, pretty much right after they settled the town, there was a severe drought that ruined the crops, and many of the farmers kind of lost their land. There was winds and thunderstorms blew down the building, so the first effort to make a town was pretty tough. In 1866, the community was invaded by grasshoppers, a grasshopper invasion. Could you imagine what that was like? And it destroyed the crops and damaged trees in the area. But the most kind of incredible, remarkable, and tragic story was in 1879. Once they kind of got the town going, it had 2 tornadoes on the same day hit Irving, and as you can imagine, destroyed much of the town. The Wizard of Oz was written by a guy named Frank Baum, and it's said that he may have named Dorothy Gale after one of the victims of the tornadoes here in 1879, which would have made a lot of sense. In 1903, the Big Blue River flooded, yet another difficult time here in Irving. But by 1910, the population was over 400 people. And it said that there was, good facilities, newspapers, offices. There were some schools here, libraries, and all kinds of churches. And then finally, in around 1960, they constructed Tuttle Creek Dam. And that was the end. And even though, this town site here isn't underwater, when they constructed it, I guess they thought that could cause problems. And so the town was basically leveled. And so not much to see here at all besides the sign. There is a little mailbox where you can sign in as a visitor. And so I did that. And some old kind of maybe sidewalks from back in the day there. Other than that, there's one house down a back road, and not much else here to see in Irving. But to visit here where 2 tornadoes hit on the same day, it's a pretty crazy story, and here in Irving, Kansas. I've been to Bigelow before. A couple years ago when I did the Oregon Trail, I followed the trail as close as I could, and it took me right near here. Well, it was just north of here, but the road I took to get through it was here, and I found this ghost town that I didn't even really know was here, and just marked with a simple stone marking, kind of like Irving has. It's pretty much all it has. It does have a little rec area here to cook out and hang out. There was a sign as you walk in or as you drive in that said, like usually towns have slow, children playing, and this one said slow men playing. So imagine people are hunting and doing different things like guys do out in the wide open spaces out here. And but kind of an interesting history. It was, like I said, near the Oregon Trail, so long history of people coming through this area. And then the railroad came through here in the 1880s, and that really helped the town grow. And it was known for limestone quarry. I think today it's known for its bugs, because there's bugs all over me. But it was known for limestone quarry, and it was, I guess, such a good area for that the railroad bought all of that. And so, you know, that it was impressive haul there by the railroad. When the quarry shut down, the town did slow down a little bit. It reached about 200 people in population, and was a pretty successful town. They did open the quarry back up, but then the post office closed in you know, in the mid 1900s, and then the Tuttle Creek lake was built, and that was the end of Bigelow as a town, as they removed all the buildings for that construction. So yeah, when you walk around here, once again, not much to see. It's nice that they do have a nice marker there and talks about some of the dates of when it was started. So pretty cool, and hopefully the next town will find a building. Right when I was getting ready to leave, a guy pulled up in his truck, and we started to talk, and he's the only one that lives here in Bigelow, has a farm here, said he was born here, he went to school here, he did move away, and then he came back, and now it's him, and this little park is really the only thing left of Bigelow. As I was leaving Bigelow, heading east, found this old marker. Over here, 1820 to 1870 Oregon Trail, Vermilion, Lower Crossing. Barrett, Kansas is one of the oldest settlements in this whole area, and it kind of predated when Kansas was even a territory. When you come here, so what I found, first of all, I did find something. Private property, there's an old school that was built around 1870, and there's an old farmhouse and a barn, and then some other buildings kind of like in that area, which I don't know how old those buildings are. There looks like an older, behind the house there's definitely an old building, and then there's a cemetery down the road, just kind of pretty innocent. Down the gravel road there's a Barrett cemetery, and there's headstones from all, from old and new, and all kinds of different times. The Sioux lived here originally, and then French traders came here, and then the first white resident outside of that was a guy named Hollenberg, who started the settlement of Hollenberg in Washington County, Kansas, and he came here around 1854. That was right around Kansas became a territory. It was a territory from 1854 to 1861. And then in 1855, there were 60 people that moved out here from Ohio, and they started a post office, and they set up and operated a sawmill, and they put a grist mill in this area. They brought a grist mill down from Leavenworth, Kansas to here by ox, and it was the only one in the county. And the area became known as Barrett's Mill. That Barrett was one of the original, people from Ohio that came out here. He was also the postmaster. And between the years 1856 and then when the Civil War began, Barrett was known as the most prominent free state settlement west of the border counties. So pretty significant town, I guess you could say. It was officially laid out in 1868. Right after that, that's when the school was built, like I was talking about earlier. The population did not grow to be too large, though. In 1910, they had 75 people. By that time, though, some of the early settlers had, passed away from this area, and people had moved on to different places. So, pretty interesting history. Certainly having the schoolhouse here is a great find, and I'm glad there's still some history of Barrett left. we are appropriately finishing our day at home, Kansas. And kind of hilarious when you think about a town being named home, but here you go. And it being in Kansas, you know, there's all kinds of connections there. So,
and think to yourself, there's no place like home.
It has a great sign when you come into town. There's an official town sign that says Home City, and I've seen it referred to that a couple times, but I think mostly people just call it home. And it started in 1874 because the post office was, you guessed it, in someone's home. And so that's what they named it. Railroad came through eventually, and it grew to 450 people at the turn of the century, around 1900. And so it was an important area for grain and livestock shipping on the railroad. And it was a normal, you know, good-sized little town there around the year 1900. And I don't know much about the history of it after that, about why it got smaller. Probably just, you know, people moved to bigger towns in this area. You know, Manhattan's not too far. There's Marysville, and yeah, so pretty interesting. I had stopped and had dinner here. There's a restaurant bar called Haps, and had a really good hamburger, and talked to some people about the town, and then they said, yeah, we just call it home. It's a nice little community. It's not run down. There are some old houses, a couple old buildings, but mostly it's just kind of a, you know, small unincorporated community here on Highway 36, which is a pretty busy and historic road here in Kansas. Hey, you made it all the way to the end of the video. And now that you're here, let me tell you a little bit more about all the other things going on this channel. If you want to become a member, you can become a member on either Patreon or YouTube memberships. There's 3 different levels, and as you are on a different level, there's more and more things, behind the scenes videos, different things that you're going to be able to gain access to. Make sure you check out my website, travelwithawiseguy.com. There's a whole bunch of new stuff on there. There's a merchandise link with some new cool merchandise. There's a newsletter that you can sign up for. About every 3 weeks I send out a new newsletter that's free. I have Google Maps, which has documented every place that I've made a video about, and you can click on there and you can go to the map and you can find the videos that I made, and it's all in one very convenient place. There's lots and lots of other stuff on there, so make sure to check out the website and explore all around what I've got going on. But once again, thank you so much for watching this video. And now on to the real reason that you're at the end of this video, the outtakes. Railroad came through and they were able to, man, it's getting sunny. Sun just came out as I'm talking. Okay, I'm gonna start over. And one guy told a story that he was, you know, he grew up here and then he went off to college and he was talking to some girl or something, and she said, "Where do you live?" And he said, "I live at home." She couldn't figure out what the heck he was talking about, except, you know, like an idiot. What are you talking about? You live at home. So we had a good chuckle.